You know that feeling? You look up, see a plane just cruising by, and you think, man, what would it take for me to be up there? For like forever, flight was just this impossible dream for humanity. But today, it's totally possible. So let's break it down, right? We're going to go from that ancient dream all the way to the actual steps you can take to get your own wings.
I mean, it really all started by just looking at birds. These early pioneers, we don't even know their names. They had this thought that seems super logical, right? They figured, hey, a bird's muscles are tiny, then our muscles are huge, so this should be easy. They'd strap on these homemade wings, jump off a cliff, and, well, it never ever worked. What they were missing was just how complex birds actually are. It's not just about flapping, it's this whole incredible system of bones and muscles and feathers that makes them a perfect flying machine.
So the dream didn't die, it just evolved, one piece at a time. You got Leonardo da Vinci in the 1500s sketching these amazing machines, but he's still kind of stuck on that whole let's just copy the birds idea. Then, boom, 1783, a huge step forward. The Montgolfier brothers get a hot air balloon up, which is amazing, but they can't steer it. It just goes wherever the wind blows. The real breakthrough for control comes from Sir George Cayley in 1852. He looked at kites and figured out the basic science of flight with his glider. He really cracked the code. And all of that, every single one of those steps, paved the way for December 17, 1903. That's when the Wright brothers finally put all the pieces together: lift, power, and control. That's when the age of aviation really, truly kicked off.
Okay, so we figured out how to get off the ground. Awesome, right? But that was really just half the battle. The next big problem, and maybe an even bigger one, was how do we make this whole thing safe?
And in the beginning, it was anything but safe. I mean, it was the Wild West of the skies, a total free-for-all. There were no rules, no safety standards, no licenses. If you could build some kind of flying machine, you could just take off. It was basically a cool but really dangerous hobby for rich guys. And because there was zero government oversight, it was never going to become the reliable way to get around that we have today.
So, to sort out all that chaos, the government finally had to step in. The big moment was the Air Commerce Act of 1926. That was the real turning point. It created the very first federal agency to actually oversee flying. And over the years, that agency grew and changed into what we now call the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. And their job in a nutshell? They write the rule book for literally everything that flies in the US and make sure everyone follows it.
And that massive job really comes down to three main things. First, they certify the pilots. They're the ones who say, yep, you know what you're doing, you're safe to fly. Second, they certify the airplanes themselves, making sure the machines are built right and are airworthy. And third, they manage all the airspace. Think of it like the highways in the sky to make sure nobody runs into each other. Those three things, that's the foundation of our entire modern aviation system. It's what makes it all work.
All right, so we've covered the history, we've covered the rules of the road. Now let's talk about you. How do you actually start your own journey into the cockpit?
So where do you even begin your training? This is pretty much the first big question you've got to answer, because there are basically two main ways to go about it. Each one has a totally different feel and structure.
So you've got two main choices. On one side, you have what are called Part 141 schools. These are FAA-approved, super structured, and follow a strict curriculum. You can kind of think of it like a college program for flying. It's really built for people who want to get to the airlines as fast as possible. Then on the other side, you have Part 61 training. This is way more flexible. You're usually working one-on-one with an instructor, and the training is tailored just for you. It's perfect if you've got a busy job and need to learn at your own pace. And look, neither one is better. It's all about what works for you, your schedule, and what you want to do with your license.
Okay, so no matter which path you choose, before you can fly an airplane by yourself, you need something called a student pilot certificate. And honestly, the requirements are pretty simple. You've got to be at least 16 years old to fly an airplane, or 14 for gliders and balloons. You need to be able to read, speak, and write in English, and you have to get at least a third-class medical certificate, which is basically just a standard health checkup with an FAA-approved doctor. Once you have that piece of paper, that's your official green light to start learning. All right, so once you start your training, you're basically climbing a ladder. Each new certificate you earn is like another rung up, and each one gives you more freedom, more privileges, and yeah, more responsibility. Pretty much everyone starts with the private pilot certificate. That's the first big goal. With about 40 hours of flight time, you can take friends and family up and just fly for the fun of it. So what if you want to get paid to fly? Well, that's the next step up, the commercial pilot certificate. For that, you're looking at around 250 hours. And then, for the people who dream of flying those big jets, the very top of the ladder is the Airline Transport Pilot Certificate, what everyone just calls the ATP. And that ATP certificate brings us to this one. Really important number, 1,500, 1,500 hours. See, after a major accident back in 2009, the FAA made this the absolute minimum number of flight hours you need to be an airline pilot. That number represents years of hard work and dedication. It's there to make absolutely sure that the pilots in the cockpit have a ton of experience, enough to handle pretty much anything that comes their way. It's a huge commitment to safety.
Okay, so let's say you've done it. You picked a path, you put in the hours, you've totally nailed the maneuvers. What's the final challenge? What's that last hurdle you have to clear to get your certificate?
Well, it all comes down to a final exam, and it's got two parts. The whole point is to prove that you've got both the book smarts and the hands-on skills to be a safe, capable pilot.
First up is the written exam, or what the FAA calls the knowledge test. It's a multiple-choice test you take on a computer, and it covers, well, everything. We're talking aerodynamics, weather, all the rules and regulations, navigation, the whole shebang. This is how you prove you actually understand the why behind what you're doing in the cockpit.
And then there's the big one, the practical test. Everyone in aviation just calls it the check ride. This is it. This is the final flight exam. You go up in the plane with an FAA examiner. They'll basically act like your passenger, and it's your job to demonstrate all your flying skills, how you handle emergencies, and, this is the most important part, that you can make good, safe decisions. You pass that check ride, and that's it. You are officially a licensed pilot.
So when you think about it, from those very first people just watching birds and dreaming, to the incredibly clear and safe path that exists today, the journey to the cockpit is still one of the coolest adventures anyone can have. It's a path that was built over centuries of trial and error, and now it's grounded in this massive commitment to safety. The sky really is waiting. So the only question is, are you ready for takeoff?